What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. It's Brittany here with another video to help you guys live a happy, healthy, awesome life in a wheelchair. And today I am going to take you guys through some of my tips for effectively returning to the community after you've had a spinal cord injury or you have become a new wheelchair user. And this is actually a presentation I teach to a class at the local rehab hospital of newly injured people every 6 weeks, I think. So every sort of new batch of patients that go through the hospital, I teach this class on returning to the community and give them all my best tips for how to make it easier, how to make it less stressful, and all of that stuff. And so I'm just going to take you through the presentation that I normally do to them. One, so that you guys can see it, and two, so that if anybody that's at the hospital misses the presentation, we have a video to give them and they can see it after they've missed it. So let's get into it. I'm going to start with the question, what is community? So when you have a spinal cord injury or you're a new wheelchair user, what does it even mean to return to the community? Well, the community is anything that is, outside of your own home. It's things that you do in order to participate in community or interact with community. But here are some things that the community consists of. It's fitness and recreation, like gyms and swimming and running tracks or walking trails, any of that kind of stuff. It's your work when you have to, leave the house to make a living. It's socialization. So if you're going to go to a restaurant with your friends or you're going to go to the movies or any of that kind of stuff, it's your hobbies. So if you like skiing or you like knitting or reading or dancing, anything that you like to do that involves leaving your house and, hanging out with other people. Community and cultural events. So like the Fringe Festival here where I live is like a big theater festival. There's like Canada Day events and like all that stuff. So those are all parts of the community. Outdoor spaces, like I said already, like walking trails and stuff like that. If you are going to, a local beach or anything like that, that is part of the community. Healthcare. So if you're going to go see your doctor, your family doctor, or you're going to go get an x-ray or anything like that. And then shopping, if you're going grocery shopping, clothes shopping, any kind of shopping. So those are all the things that I include in community. Community just involves the many aspects of living in a city or a town that allow it to function and that we interact with on a daily basis. So I'm going to give you some tips on how to effectively go into those spaces, be a part of the community, and have it be sort of a more seamless transition. My first tip for making returning to the community easier is to set small, realistic goals. So these don't have to be anything huge. When you're in the hospital or when you're newly injured or when you're a new wheelchair user, everything seems really scary and it's like overwhelming to think of like all of the things that I listed: work, play, going grocery shopping, going to the doctor's office. All that seems really big. Set small, realistic, attainable goals. So if you know that the store that you generally want to go to for your groceries that's near your house has a lip that's like this big and like a 1-inch lip to get from the road onto the curb cut, onto the sidewalk and to get into the store, then your goal could be something simple like learning how to do a wheelie and bump over a 1-inch bump. Something like that, like something super simple. So just figure out where you want to go and kind of work backwards with some of the things that you see as obstacles that might prevent you from getting there or that are making you nervous about getting there. My second tip for returning to the community and making it super simple is to think about the logistics. So setting realistic goals about where you want to go, like I want to leave the house and go to my friend's house for half an hour, or I want to go grocery shopping by myself, or I want to go to work 1 day a week, or whatever the goals are. All of those things require the logistics to be in place. And the logistics that I'm talking about are how are you going to get there, which is transportation. And then the other logistic that I think is super important is how are you going to poop and pee when you get there? And these things can't be understated. Like if you don't know how you're going to get from one place to another, with your disability, it's probably going to be pretty scary. So if you don't have any plans for how you're going to be able to drive or whether you have public transportation or any of that stuff, if you're going to rely on somebody, how are they going to pick you up, or what is that going to look like in terms of the relationship and whether you're going to rely on them for transportation, you have to figure all of that stuff out. And sometimes the goals don't even start with like going to a friend's house. It's like, I need to learn how to drive, or I need to figure out, which bus routes are accessible in my community. So first figure out how you're going to get there, or at least start thinking about it, and then figure out a way to pee when you're going to get there. And the thing that I think is super important is figuring out how to pee without a bathroom. That's been a major game changer for me in terms of my independence and my comfort level when I leave the house, because I know that I don't have to rely on a bathroom in order to cath. I have a zipper in the crotch of my pants. You probably can't see it. Maybe you can, but I have a zipper in the crotch of my pants, so I could literally just pee on the couch. If I had to pee right here, and I could pee in my car, I can be anywhere. And that was I didn't figure that out for, 5 or 6 years after I was paralyzed. But once I figured that out, my world opened up drastically, because I could go camping with friends. And if I couldn't find an accessible bathroom, I just had to go to my car and pee and then go back wherever we were hanging out. And it didn't, mean that I couldn't go to that outing or be part of the community in that way. So the logistics that you have to figure out are how you're going to get there and how are you going to poop and pee when you get there. The logistics are so important. I can't overstate that enough. If you don't know how you're going to get somewhere and you don't know how you're going to pee when you get there, I guarantee that transitioning to the community is going to be rough at times. So those two things should be a major focus. My second tip for making returning to the community easier is to prepare some mindset shifts that you're going to have to either accept or practice in order to not feel uncomfortable when you get out into the community. Because if you are a new wheelchair user and you're not used to having a disability, there are some things that are just uncomfortable that you've never really experienced before. So here are my mindset shifts that I think that you need to make in order to be comfortable being in the community. It's still going to be uncomfortable, but it'll make it easier if you practice shifting your mindset in these ways before you kind of get out into the community. And they are, number one, getting used to being conspicuous. So if you are not used to being stared at or being, a spectacle, then you better get used to it, because if you're in a wheelchair of any kind, you're just different than, 90% of the people walking around. And while some people garner other people's attention from time to time from, whatever they're wearing, oh, that's a nice shirt or something like that. When you're in a wheelchair, generally people notice you. Not all the time. I don't always get people looking at me, but I do a lot. And it used to bother me so much. I used to get so self-conscious, and I just hated when people were looking at me, because I always thought that they were thinking I was silly or stupid or whatever. And it was just really uncomfortable. So just get used to being stared at. And this leads to my second tip, which is don't sweat the stairs. And then the third thing about that mindset shift is just don't assume what people are thinking. So try to get used to being conspicuous, and don't care if people are staring at you. And if they are staring at you, then assume that they're thinking something kind. I generally think that people are thinking I'm good looking, or that that they feel sorry for me, or they have some sort of compassionate thing that they're thinking. I don't ever assume people are thinking that I'm weird looking or any of that stuff. I did when I was first paralyzed, and it just made me very self-conscious and uncomfortable, and it made me not want to interact with other people or engage with anybody. And when I assume people are thinking something kind, then I do want to engage with them, because if I think they're looking at me because they're curious, or they aren't sure whether they should ask me if they want help, or if I want help, then I have sort of a more comfortable time being like, hi, or just anything. It's just more comfortable when you assume people are being kind rather than rude, right? So those are sort of my first three things. And then the next one is learn to ask for help, learn to accept help if you need it, and learn to ask for help if you are struggling and nobody's offering to help. Because when you go out in public, you're not always going to be in a situation that you are able to do something. You might not be able to open a heavy door, or you might not be able to reach something at the grocery store. You might get stuck in some snow when you're crossing the street. You might fall out of your wheelchair in the middle of your job. I'm a teacher, and I fell out of my wheelchair in the middle of the hallway, and my wheelchair wheeled all the way down the hall. And I absolutely had to ask for help in order for somebody to get my wheelchair. And then eventually a teacher lifted me back into it. But there's no way that I could have gotten that wheelchair by myself. So I had to ask for help. And when I'm in the grocery store, I often have to ask people to grab things. If I'm stuck and I can't, manage to get myself out, or God forbid I get, stuck in my vehicle somehow. I fell out of my wheelchair once inside my vehicle and I was stuck in an awkward position. I definitely had to ask for help. So getting used to accepting help and getting used to asking for help is a mindset shift that a lot of us who've not been used to doing that have to make when we are first paralyzed. The next one is get comfortable with uncertainty. There is no time ever when you are in a wheelchair or you have a disability that you're going to be able to predict what your surroundings look like when you get out into the community. You're not going to know if everything is accessible. You're not going to know if like a hotel room is set up for you. You're just not going to know what the settings are going to look like. And so it's always a little bit scary when you go somewhere. And you just have to get comfortable with that uncertainty. And that kind of relates back to the last one, which is get used to asking for help. The uncertainty is fine as long as you're okay asking for help if something doesn't pan out when you show up at the place. Don't always, rely on everything being perfect when you get there, because it's not going to happen. And then the last one I already said, which is just assume everyone is trying to be nice. So assume people are trying to be nice, assume people are being nice, thinking nice thoughts. If they are saying something, or if they're looking at you, and especially if they say something to you, assume that they are just well-intentioned and trying to be nice, because people say a lot of dumb things to people in wheelchairs thinking that they're being kind or funny, and a lot of the time it comes across as patronizing or rude, and I just remember that the intention is always to engage with me in a genuine way, and I'd rather be engaged with than be ignored, and I would much rather somebody make a mistake thinking they're being kind than not talk to me at all, or just not offer me help. So that's the way I go through life. Those are the mindset shifts that I think are helpful. The next tip for returning to the community and making it easier is try everything. This comes along with that whole uncertainty thing. You have to be able to try a lot of things and try them often and try them over and over again if you're going to get used to being out in the community doing anything. You have to grocery shop more than once to get good at it. You have to drive more than once, or wheel around in your, favorite place more than once. You just have to try everything. And this isn't just for little things like going to the grocery store or going to the library or going to the gym. This is for everything, like recreation and sports. Try every adaptive sport that you can find in your local community. Try as much as you can with the level of ability that you have. And the more you try, the more confident you're going to get. And don't let stupid limiting beliefs stop you. For years, I didn't try any adaptive sports because I was afraid of the transfer that I would have to make from my wheelchair to the sit ski or my wheelchair to the hand cycle. And that, I don't know how much it is, like 15 inches or something like that, or maybe as much as 24 inches. That amount of space, that fear of that amount of space stopped me from having so much fun. And eventually, once I learned how to get into a hand cycle, and I didn't even have to learn how to get into a hand cycle to try it, because there's lots and lots of adaptive sporting organizations in most cities that are major cities that have people that will help you into the equipment. So don't let a fear of how you're going to get into the equipment stop you. Phone, ask them, do you have people that can assist me to get into the sports equipment and all that stuff? And generally the answer is yes. So don't ever let that kind of a barrier stop you from going out and trying everything. Because you can't find things that are fun and that are rewarding until you actually try it. Because you can't. There's no way. So try everything. Go everywhere. Travel. Go to the park. Go to the library. Go to a gym. Go to able-bodied classes, even though they don't have adapted classes. Just do everything. And the more you do it, the more people in your community will learn who you are. They'll interact with you. They'll engage with you. They'll learn how to adapt things for you. I went to the gym many times and went to able-bodied women's fitness classes and just felt really out of place for the first 1 or 2 times. And then once I figured out what the class was about, how many times they were going to do things that were, leg exercises versus arm exercises, and how many I would have to adapt while I was there. And then the instructor kind of learned how to adapt things for me. And then eventually, by the time I went the 3rd or 4th or 5th time, I didn't feel out of place anymore because we were working together. The instructor was adapting the exercises for me. I was adapting for myself. The people in there were used to me. They weren't staring at me anymore. I was making friends, all of that stuff. So just get out and try things. And I know it's really scary at first, but the more things that you do that scare you when you were first paralyzed and the more mistakes you make, the more you'll learn and the easier it's going to be moving forward. Because I spent so many years avoiding any kind of community interaction or doing anything alone because it terrified me. And it took me so long in order to overcome those fears. So don't waste 5, 6, 7 years like I did. Just go out and do everything as early as you can, and then you'll learn faster. Okay, the last thing is find a mentor. So I spent so many years avoiding people with disabilities because I didn't want to feel like I was part of that club. I wanted to just be like left alone. I didn't want anybody with a disability to look at me, to talk to me. If I saw somebody in a wheelchair out in public, I was like, don't you dare talk to me. Like I was so uncomfortable around other people in wheelchairs. And that's why it took me so long to get comfortable with my disability, because I didn't feel like I belonged in a wheelchair. And I didn't talk to anybody that would help make me feel like I belonged. And the longer I spent away from people with disabilities, the longer it took me to learn things, because it's always harder to do things on your own than to just, take advice from a mentor. So find people with disabilities, because people with disabilities are awesome, period. They're awesome. They know more than you. If they've been in a wheelchair for longer than you, chances are they know 10 times more than you do. And they're willing to share all of the great tips that they've learned. They're willing to help you avoid the mistakes that they have made and, save you all of those tears and years of struggle and all that stuff. So find a mentor, and it'll make your life so much easier, I promise. So those are my tips for returning to the community. Just to summarize, community is anything that, takes you out into the world and makes you interact with other people, shopping, socializing, going to fitness classes, doing anything like that. And then you really have to decide what community means to you. What parts of the community do you want to get back to and why? And then you got to figure out the logistics about how you're going to get there, and then what you're going to do in terms of a bathroom when you get there. So I always suggest finding a way to pee without a bathroom, and making your life easier that way. And then once you know, or you're starting to work on the logistics, then you can work on your mindset. You can think of all of the ways that it's going to be uncomfortable when you get out into the community in terms of people staring at you and needing to ask for help and all that stuff. And you can mentally prepare for that, and that'll make it easier. And then the next one is just trying everything, failing often and keeping on going. Trying things so that you can find stuff that you like, trying to go into parts of the community that you previously enjoyed, and seeing how you function, and then, and then making it better the next time. And then the last one is just find a mentor. Find somebody with a disability that has a similar disability than you, a similar disability as you, and learn from them. And yeah, those are my tips. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions about anything I've said, you can put it in the comments. And if you have any other tips for returning to the community, then you can put those in the comments as well. I think that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you back here on another video. Bye, guys!